Hey there, enlightened beings, seekers of wisdom, people who just accidentally clicked on this while trying to order takeout. Welcome to SAHAJ Times podcast. My name is Lele. I'm the host of this podcast, the person in this environment who is obligated to keep everything, to keep this show from falling apart. And with me, as always, is the one, the only Fabrizio, trying to make it fall just to see if I can hold it together. Ciao, Fabri.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here for another episode.
So, let's get to it, Fabrice. Who's
What do we
gracing
talk
our
about today?
chaos? Yeah,
Well,
who's gonna join us? And please tell me it's someone who can finally settle the real deal, the real question. Can women wear shorts? Debate. We're gonna talk about this later. Where are
so
they?
today, how did we come up to this? I think actually, Lele, this was your idea to this episode,
This
and
was my idea.
what came so far, which is also quite nice. At least my personal journey to this is that we were gonna have three. We're not gonna say the names yet. We're gonna have three guests who are all yoginis. And I think it'll be nice for all of us to take a bit of a moment to appreciate a bit the role that women have in our society, in our sangha, in our family, and it's something that is not often done, or maybe not enough. And I have experiences, like I don't know if you ever had this. Like sometimes you enter the puja hall, right? So you come in,
Hmm.
and then there is like this. It's like a beehive, like of women all connected to each other somehow. They didn't agree on what to do, and they just like one is putting up the sari, one is making this beautiful flower composition, some are moving out the chair, some are cleaning. It's like everything is done, but is not organized, but it is perfectly sinking in. And the other
Where are
day
you
I'm like,
going with that?
no, I'm like, this is the beauty of Sahaj, and this is the beauty of what women bring to our collective. Like if it was me, I'd be like, okay, now everybody, this is the spreadsheet, this is how we're gonna do it, and then you do this, you do that, then you fight over who gets what task. But what I really love, I was thinking about it, I'm like, what do I love about, women in my collective, aunties, sisters, whatever, is this capacity that they have to connect to each other first of all at a different level, and to men also, so to the collective, and that is perfectly unorganized, but the outcome is there. And then when you see it, it's just beauty that comes out, and it's something that if you don't pay attention you won't see it. It's a bit like nature, you know what I mean? It's like things that if you don't really sit down and be like, how did this all happen, you just come to the puja, the flowers are beautiful, the background is amazing, everything is set up, and you're like, oh yeah, this is just happened by itself. It doesn't. Big surprise. So anyway, at least for me, this is not what we're going to talk about today. It's not puja preparation, but at least for me, it was a nice journey because I could really sit down and I'm like, what do I really appreciate of my sisters and aunties and niece and that's that. This beauty, this very spontaneous and beautiful approach that they bring to the collective. But I would say, without further ado, should we bring our guest in?
Yeah, so let's see if
Yes,
they
please.
actually agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
So, would you name them?
Yes. So we're gonna have, actually, it's nice. We have somebody from a different continent, at least living in a different continent. We have Romina from the USA, originally from Argentina. We have Pragya from Switzerland, originally from USA. And we have Niranjana from India, originally from Switzerland. So we can all bring them in.
Hello, 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 hello. Let's put the boys down. Let's put
As agreed.
the guys
So
on
funny.
top. Okay, you mentioned Romina's first. Okay, so it should be in order
There you
Oh
now.
go.
boy.
US, Switzerland, India.
That was like a
Welcome.
tongue twister. Thank you, Lele. Thank you, Fabri.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome to Such Times podcast.
Thank you.
Let's just dive into it, Fabri. Let's not waste
Let's go.
time, I think.
So there is a lot of talk in society about women and men, what we do best, what should be the roles. But I think most of us are familiar with this beautiful speech that Shimaji gave about the wheels of the chariot and how we need each other and we're dependent on each other. So maybe today we can ask one of you who would like to take this question. Uh, you know, how do you see the relationship and how does it help the collective?
So, of course, Shimataji described it best when she speaks about the differences between men and women, yet the fact that they are indeed equal. And when she gave us this analogy of the two wheels of the chariot, it's because only when the wheels are the same size can the chariot go forward, and only when they are the same size can it be balanced. So definitely in Sahaj Yoga, if we want to follow Mother's teachings and guidance, then definitely there needs to be this mutual respect between men and women, and more than respect, this inherent understanding that we are equal, although very different. And many people sort of see the descriptions of the Lakshmi qualities as, a way to put women down, or to say that, women's place belongs in this or in doing that. But again, when Shimataji describes the qualities of the Lakshmi, these are qualities, they're not actions. So the qualities of, or rather the role of the woman is in expressing those qualities. And that is independent of whether she does it as a housewife, as a professional, as a married or unmarried, mother or not mother, whatever role or whatever place she has in society, she can express those qualities. And those qualities are those of, generosity, nurturing, bringing comfort, bringing peace, bringing that sort of sense of well-being and contentment. And it's not, and typically, with this whole discussion about women should be equal to men, very often those qualities get seen as lesser than and get put down, as if to say that if you express them, you are negating yourself
Yeah.
because you're being generous to others, or you are negating yourself in favor of others. But actually, it's not true. And one quote which comes to mind, which actually my father used to tell me always in terms of our relationship to God, is that the giver is always greater than the gift. The gift can never be greater than the giver.
Yeah.
And it's the same when women express their generosity, when they express their love, when they express their forbearance, or their, they are not giving away themselves. They are expressing themselves, but it's not something that needs to be seen as, at the expense of.
Yeah. I think one amazing point that you, at least two things I noted down from what you say, which I really like, Nira, is one is the we're equal but different. Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to be the same. I mean, even take marriage, right? If we were the same, we would reinforce our conditioning and not grow. Like the whole point of getting married is evolving, right? So that difference almost need to be sought, because
Mm.
that's how you grow. Pretty much that's it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if we recognize qualities in the other, whether they are the male or the female counterpart, it and we realize that those qualities are not there in ourselves, or those strengths are not. It's not about feeling insecure or bad about ourselves, but recognizing those qualities in them, recognizing the qualities that you yourself also have, and how they are complementary to each other. And it's absolutely fine to lean on each other, rely on each other, recognize the strengths instead of competing. If we all compete, we can't all be good at everything. So leaving the space for one to be good at something and you to be good at something else
Exactly.
is a
Exactly.
way of also the pieces of the puzzle fitting into each other. If we all have
Exactly.
the same bumps, then we don't
Mm-hmm.
interlock. You need to have, where there's a bump, there's a gap, or and
Exactly.
the other way around.
Mm-hmm. I wish Nira I had spoken to you about this when I first got married, because when I first got married, I didn't really understand the really what was said about the wheels of the chariot. And when I met my husband, he was saying to me, we are two wheels of the chariot, we're equals. And I would look at him, and he knew the entire Ganesha Tavishesha by heart. He knew all the mantras by heart, and I didn't know any of that. And I said, "Oh my gosh, how are we equals?" But it's exactly as you're saying. It's not about it's it's recognizing that we don't have the same strengths, and there have been definitely moments in the marriage where if he's had a very heavy burden of stress to carry from work, or he's feeling lost in his meditations or whatever it is, you see that's where you come up and you support that, or you
You
nurture, or
lift.
you comfort, or you piss. Yeah, exactly. You have the peace, um, and that I didn't know at the beginning. So I was trying to understand, how are we equals when I'm seeing him like this great yogi, and I'm not at all equal to that at the beginning. So it's just recognizing everybody has weaknesses and everybody has strengths, and you lift each other up and you support each other where you can.
Also,
Yeah.
going off track now, but I think when it comes to marriages, because we did many workshop, one thing that we also tend to say is that, and I think this is something that in society now is a bit lost. A marriage, life actually, not just marriage, even living in a collective, is about dependency. Is about you need the rest of the collective. Is about you need your wife in order
Mm.
to make, like, that's the whole point of doing it, or to go to the collective. So I feel a little bit, I don't know if it's just in the West, but I guess it's everywhere in the world. We live in a society where they're trying to say you have to do everything by yourself alone.
Yeah.
You don't need anyone, just go for it. And it's just wrong, because the quality of Sasrara's integration is not do it all alone. So I think especially in Saj we should remember that, right?
Mhm.
Very true.
Yeah. And to enjoy it also, that's, I mean, ultimately that's what, mother wants us to enjoy our life.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
not supposed to be a punishment. It's not supposed to be a hardship. And
Exactly.
yes,
Yeah.
sure, rough patches come along the way. But if you have that understanding that you each have each other's backs, that you're there for each other, to support each
Mhm.
other, then it's so much easier to face whatever it is.
Yeah. Lele, you've been awfully quiet. Do you want to ask us a question?
Because I was pondering ideas, I was pondering questions, and all these qualities are really important. In we've been talking about couples more like, but these qualities also manifest, I would say, in other categories of life. Can be also, like, for example, in the leadership. And I'm pointing at this because it's a question that we have received from the Q&A, was why there are almost no yogini leaders. And it was a bit weird to me, first of all, because I know that in the Italian Yuva Shakti, for example, it's basically led by Yogini. They're like a really close friend of mine, and they are doing such an amazing job. And they're also like listened from the Italian leadership. So I also know that there are other examples, but what's your thought on this? I would say.
I can jump in on this one. I mean, definitely we know many women around the world. It depends geographically where you are at. Maybe in that particular collective, there has never been a lady that has been a leader. But, I am from New York, and we had an all ladies council. We were five ladies leading a collective of 250 or more. And it was a lot of fun because, I remember at the beginning when you are trying to establish a certain, strategy or planning of what you're going to do in these 3 years. In terms of Sahaj activities, our motto was, let's go and talk to the collective and figure out what's in their heart. We need to
Nice.
understand what's in people's heart instead of pushing our ideas, or, whatever didn't work before, make it work now and prove that we can do it. It was more like, let's go and understand what's there. And based on that, that became the baseline. We created, a plan of work, and the collective was fueled up because people felt that they're listening to us, and now we can all participate in doing this work. Similarly, after 2 years of being in this council, we brought two additional members. One of them was Mr. Fabrizio. The other also was a yogi. And I remember clearly what a beautiful balance they brought into the council as well. So I don't think that just because it was a ladies' council, it was the best council of all. Not at all. When the brothers came on board, they brought fantastic ideas, dynamism, a lot of I don't know how to describe what you brought, Fabri, you and Gautam, but it was wonderful. That's where you see this power that Nira described so well, the wheels of the chariot, where everybody has a set of qualities, and as long as you work from the heart, things are going to be just fine. I also think that taking roles of leadership do not come just by leading a council. You can take a role
Yeah,
of leadership by, I don't know, helping in your collective to do a cook-off or leading a puja or a meditation. It comes down to, do you want to do that? Back in the day, a leader had I would say, the support of Sri Mataji, and the fact that was assigned by Sri Mataji, and then the collective had to follow. These days, if you lead something and you do not have collective consensus, and if you are not the first one to get to a place or to do things from beginning to end, probably nobody's going to take you seriously.
yeah.
So, it comes with the responsibility, but I think anybody can take a leadership role.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, and just a story that popped up in my mind. I wasn't planning to share, but I think it's quite nice. Yes, we're all equal, this and that, but we also do things differently. And I have this memory, which is really nice. I think Romy, there was this I think is really shows because Shimaji, I think, also used to do it like that with love, and there was this leadership that is clear but also very compassionate, you know. And I remember there was a problem in the collective. I'm not gonna go into details, but Romy was the coordinator, and there was fights, this and that, and she basically took the person who was being in trouble or being attacked or attacking other people and said, okay, this is just too much, now you just come to my house for 2 weeks. And I'm like, only a woman would have done that. It's like, I would have never never ever brought the problem in my house ever. Like, just like, and to me it just blew my mind off because she wasn't soft. She wasn't like, oh, whatever you need. No, 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 she was tough, but it's like, okay, come into my house now. This needs to cool down. Come into my house. And I was like, wow. And I told my wife, Bea, don't ever do something like that to me. But I really appreciated Rome's amazing. They really touched me. It was really quite amazing. It was really incredible.
I can't
Um,
believe you told that story.
well, we we can we
Really?
can always
Uh,
we can always
It's
cut
fun.
it. We can always cut. But I thought it was very
No, it's
meaningful to
okay.
me.
It was more like a month.
Yeah.
Mamma mia.
wow. But it's
Uh,
like when mother talks about how she constructed the house, right? She did
exactly.
it so differently than a man would have gone about it. And she
Exactly.
she she fed and looked after the workers so they got motivated to give their best. And
Exactly.
so again, it's not about what we do, it's how we do it. And in
Hmm.
how we behave and in how we go about things, those qualities are expressed. But yeah, it's so
Hmm.
different. That was
Exactly. No,
amazing.
and also what I noticed, I mean, now this is just my personal view and experience. Through what you were discussing also, Romy, the councils through the years changed, and at each year, whatever was needed was brought, like it changed every 3, 4 years. I can't remember often. But you could see at some point was like a lot of left-sided people, kind of, maybe, so they were quieter, there was less fights. Then there was like a few, then there was the women, then there was the men, and and really every time what was needed. And maybe Romy, if she had been there 10 years before, wouldn't worked well, because that was not the time where her
Hmm.
organizational
Circumstances.
skills were needed, right? So
But I think it's important to
100%.
note that Shrimataji did put women in leadership positions. You had a woman leading Colombia collective and
yeah,
the US collective and Turkey and Russia. So it's not to, it's more just to point out that in the history of Sajoga, there have been women leaders. And now you have many women in councils as well, as you had also mentioned. I think it's just circumstantial rather than based on
yeah,
gender
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah,
and
without
also
actually mentioning that the Adishakti chose to come
Who
on
is a
earth
woman?
as a woman.
As a
So if that's not a clear
Yeah,
small
that's
detail.
meaning
yes.
of leadership, if it's not that,
So I think this whole topic goes to flow very well into the next question, because we've been saying it's not about the role, it's not about what you will do, but it's about the the intention, the respect, the appreciation, and the nurturing of qualities, right? So one thing that we've seen through the questions that we received is that, of course, as you can imagine, if the Sri Lakshmi principle is not respected, things will not work well, right? That we've seen. So a couple of questions that came up that we might want to address is, one was, I got married, and my future husband on match came to me, and the first thing he said is, Do you know how to cook?" Now I think the question itself was not the problem, is the speed and the directness by which he came. So it was actually quite sweet, because this yogini said, if he was asked from the heart with respect, I would have not minded. I just didn't like that he came down as a hammer, on me. So that was one. And another one was also, another yogini was sharing a bit of her frustration of, I am home, I am educated, or maybe it was the sister mentioning, but it's like, the husband feels that if the woman wants to go and work, it's a sense of greediness, materialism, and she will not be able to look after the house. So I do personally feel that's a bit of a misunderstanding of the Sri Lakshmi principle. So who would like to address this ones? I forgot who's supposed to ask.
You take note for every single thing happening on earth, forgetting who
Yeah.
to ask the question. I
Pragya,
also
what do you
forgot.
think about
Yeah,
this?
no, I mean, I was gonna say that, the Lakshmi qualities not being respected is something I would agree to, in a sense that in society you don't often find on social media encouraging videos for women on, great, you're looking after the children, or taking care of the house, or whatever it is. You don't have these, so much of that. It's kind of putting women down, or even in my case, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 6 years, and you say that to anyone on the street and they're like, oh, but didn't you want to do anything else, or don't you want to get back into the work field, or oh yeah, that's nice, that's cute. And you're kind of thinking, well, this is a big job that I have, it's not nothing, and
Yeah,
I think the point is, though, that if a woman puts her name down to get married and has an expectation that they would like their future husband, to have a job, I guess it's not totally unreasonable that the man puts his name down and hopes that he can have some food, and a clean house. Then, you're going to say, well, what about the women who want to work? Yeah, sure, you can work. I think working, not working, cleaning, not, it's back to this exact same thing that we keep saying of, it's not about what you're doing that makes you a woman or not. It's about the qualities. And that's what I would say about that.
yeah.
You can
I
edit
mean,
that.
specifically about marriage, I think to specifically ask about the match, because again, we do often these workshops, and I think this practical advice needs to be given a bit more often on how to behave, when you
Mm.
get
Yeah.
married, when you get matched. But I think
It's
to
a
also make
contribution, isn't it? It's if
exactly,
you're contributing by doing the cooking and cleaning, what they're contributing by bringing home the paycheck. But if you're going to work, then what are they? It's like this give and take.
exactly.
It's. I think that's really the point here.
And I think also I like that point where she said, I wouldn't mind if it was done from the heart. And
Hmm.
to reverse the situation, I've heard stories where the guy was matched, and the father-in-law is like, so how much do you make? you know it's not all right. So
Hmm.
it is all right to, I mean, I have two sons, right? I already tell them now, 13 and 10. I'm like, study, work hard, because when you get matched, you need to be ready to provide. It's important. But for the other part to make you feel like an ATM machine is not all right too, right? So I
Hmm.
think ultimately it's really about subtle respect, and it's
Hmm.
important though to
Exactly.
share these things because they're not obvious apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also
Yeah.
what came out from the questions is that somehow when these, of course, there are qualities of the Lakshmi Tattva, but if they get like imposed on another person, they
Yeah,
kind of suffocate themselves,
Hmm.
because you're not able to evolve them to take care of them, and that's something that I still never really witnessed because I'm not married, but something that also gets like boosted after the marriage. and that's something also really personal. I know that it's gonna be like part of the couple, but it's also really personal. So if you like, if you show up like after the getting matched to like your match and then asking if she can cook, it's a bit weird now. It's like if she asked me if I can fix a sink. I can Google it, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Like my car is broken, I need to call someone. It's like it's not about that. It's about the
Yeah.
qualities and things
Mhm.
that actually show
Exactly.
up. And
Can
I
you
also
really
think
fix
that
Nobody
a
the
wants
sink
to
tone
though?
be.
Like,
I
the
couldn't
tone of the
understand.
question is very important, because who doesn't like
Mm.
Yeah.
food, right? I mean,
Yes.
if somebody comes and says, hey, do you like cooking? I cook this type of food, you cook that type of food, that it can become actually a lot of fun to get to try different types of food. You eat every day, 3 4 times a day, so I understand the worry about, am I going to be
Am I
fed
gonna?
if I spend the whole day outside working? I'm gonna get back, am I gonna be fed good food? But it has to do with how, the tone of the question.
But also comes
Mhm.
sometimes from the mom of the person who getting matched. It's like my mom is
True.
wondering if you can actually
Yeah.
cook because she's kind of worried that I starve.
Well,
Something
you
like
see,
that.
that's a little bit of the women competition. A mother raises a child throughout, from the moment that he's born, and fed this wonderful food that the child got used to it, whether it's good or not. And suddenly he's moving on to another woman, and
Mm.
that person is going to cook a different type of food. Is it going to be the same? It will never be the same. But you see,
Mhm.
that has to do with the women competition at times, and we have to cross that barrier. Really, the mothers that do not compete with their daughters-in-laws, they gain so much more than those that do.
That's a very, yeah, that's
Yeah,
very
and
true.
it
And I think,
kind of
yeah.
creates. No, go Nira, go Nira, go Nira.
No, I was just going to say it's again all about the attitude, you know. It's
Mhm.
about it's not about putting expectations on a person or putting a chore
exactly.
or a task on them, but allowing that person to have the space to provide or to offer or to, so instead of saying, "Do you know how to cook?" You approach it. I mean, anybody would feel upset if
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
one of the first questions that they get. You're not marrying me for my abilities to do your house chores.
Mhm.
So again, it says more about that person's attitude and that person's qualities or lack of understanding more than so-called Lakshmi qualities. That's not
Mhm.
at all the idea of what a Lakshmi is.
But does it create some sort of lack of confidence also in women? I mean, in your like experience, you've seen situations. Does it create some sort of lack of confidence?
Well, if
Lack of
you, I
confidence.
mean, going back to the example of cooking, if you don't cook well and suddenly you're put to cook 3 4 meals a day, for sure it's gonna take a toll on your
Yes, it can be
confidence.
stressful.
Maybe you should, go on YouTube and learn a few things. But no, but aside from that, it's not just about cooking. Women are asked to educate themselves and work and raise children, bear children, do all kinds of things as if we are almost a checklist. And I believe truly that
Yeah.
we are not a checklist. We have to look within ourselves and see what are the qualities, what are our strengths, make our strengths even stronger, but also have a common sense that if you lack on some basic things that will help you go on with life, maybe you should learn about it, right?
Go,
Yeah,
Nira.
like
You.
this is kind of becoming a recipe episode actually, because of course the question was the example was about food, but also in the bottom line there is like the development of the Lakshmi Tattva in one person, and all in the girl, but also in the boy. Like also the
Yeah.
boy has to take
Yeah.
some responsibility inside the cup. It's not only I
Mhm.
hunt outside of the cave, I get the meat and I cook it, while the
Yeah.
woman, it's like
Mm.
it's not
Mhm.
Neanderthalish stuff.
Yeah.
Some
You
people
know.
really want to work, want to have a position also in the society, and
And
it's not a bad thing if you come late after work and you take out food instead of cooking. Is a of course there is a position.
Mhm.
And I think it needs to be said because one of the readers of your platform also put it up in response to this question that a lot of preconceived ideas about men and women that date from before Sahaj Yoga. After people come to Sahaj Yoga, they bring them with them. And so these ideas shouldn't be associated to Sahaj Yoga just because Mother praises the qualities of the Lakshmi. These are ideas that were there in society and that have been used throughout history to put women down, keep women in their place, so to speak, where they don't, take decisions or ask questions. And recognizing the qualities of the woman doesn't in any way validate those ideologies. And so if somebody behaves in that way, it should be very clear to everybody that this is not, according to the teachings of Shrimataji.
Yeah,
Well said.
absolutely. And I think we are very smoothly entering a bit into the next topic, which is, I guess when also outside ideas, pressures come into Sahaj, right? There's the movement sometimes, we bring things into our collective. And one thing also that I think we all felt a little bit talking these past few days is that there is so much mentalized talk about gender, right? The overheard discussion of gender roles and in society that is creating a bit that friction, and taking it away from the wheels of the chariot that we
Mhm.
talk for. Do you see that, for example, in young girls in your collective, or do you see it at work or around you? That's something that you experience or you see a bit.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
yeah, go
go ahead.
ahead, Pragya.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say that definitely all of these subliminal messages have an impact on the confidence of these girls and feeling like they need to fit a mold, not just young girls, but older women as well. And we need to look like we are still 20 years old, and we need to look like we're the super species that can do 1,000 things at once. And I don't know, all of these somehow definitely has an impact on one's confidence. And if I look at my own daughter who's 6 years old, she doesn't seem to lack confidence. And I do believe that children are born with this, with their roots, with they know who they are somehow. They're born with this feeling. But as we grow up and we're bombarded with these messages and these images and these experiences and these conditionings, we go away from our roots, and therefore we become more insecure or lacking confidence, or whatever it is. So I definitely think it does have an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that, the response to this historical sort of oppression of women is is um, is such that women themselves put each other down for valuing these qualities. So, in the sense, and Pragya mentioned this earlier, that if a woman, takes pride and joy in being a stay-at-home mom, or a full-time, then people assume that it's because she isn't empowered, or she doesn't have enough ambition in her life, or so there's that subtle women who also put down women, and who, so again, it's not about in what we do but in how we behave. And even if a woman is at home, she's no less competent or no less intelligent than a woman
Exactly.
who's at
Who's
work,
in the office.
and vice versa. A woman at work isn't necessarily less loving or less generous than a woman who's at home. And I think that this whole narrative about feminism, where uh, as Pragya said, we have to prove ourselves in every single walk of life. We have to be professionals and mothers and organizers, and manage
Yeah.
absolutely every aspect of our entire family and profession and career and all that. There's this unnecessary pressure, and I think that pressure would be less if women valued themselves more, in terms of their own qualities, rather than looked at others for validation of themselves, whether
Mm-hmm.
those others are their family members, such as their husband, or others such as their colleagues, and the recognition that they get in the career setting. And I mean, that's true for men as well as women. I mean, it's a basic principle of confidence. But definitely it plays a part in this whole relationship also.
Hmm. If
And
you're established within yourself, then you're confident.
Yeah,
It's again, it comes from being inside. If you connect back to those roots that you had as a child, you are confident because you know yourself, and all of the outside noise doesn't have that impact.
exactly. And also, I think sometimes being practical a little bit in the sense, like, again, trying to block out those voices. I remember with my wife, I think it was 5, 6 years ago, we read a very interesting article of somebody who worked in the cabinet of Obama. I think is a very high level woman. And she was saying that she had young kids at some point, and basically she had this super high level job, and she took a break. And she was saying, there's a bit of this lie that you, as long as you work hard, you can do it all. You can be
yeah,
with a 3 months pregnant and go in the cabinet of Obama. Like we're selling this story, and it's not about women or men. Nobody can do that. No one on
exactly.
earth can
Mm-hmm.
do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
I think recently there's been put more pressure on women to do that. You don't hear a story about, oh man, you just had a baby, doesn't matter, double your hours of work. Like it's kind of stupid, right? But you have this pressure on women, like, why are you stopping working because you had a baby? You can, like, just work harder. And the solution to everything is not just work harder.
yeah.
A reality exists in itself, and sometimes we just need to adapt to it, no? So I don't know, I
Mm-hmm.
see that there's a lot of pressure, I feel, in that field of work. And then, as you said, Nira, manifesting many things. You have the one that says, oh, I'm not going to have a family, I just want to work. You have the one that says, I work only, but then you feel kind of put down all the time. And then you have the one that trying to juggle both, and you feel half empty both sides, because that's also the point. So I think we just need to overall reduce that pressure, reduce that,
Exactly.
and I think it
Yeah.
started with a good intent, because the
Mm-hmm.
intent was, being oppressed for so many years. Now let's lift up, let's put you a bit
Mm-hmm.
more to the forefront. But as everything normally, the pendulum, swung all the way up, and now
Mm-hmm.
that good intent became pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We shouldn't
And
fall
Overworked.
into the trap of trying to fulfill the society expectations. The
yeah,
Exactly.
society, even in Sahaj, sometimes we set expectations for ourselves. I recall when I had my second child, I wanted to take off from work and stay at home with her. And when I presented the permission, to take off for a whole year, my executive office showed me and sent me graphics of how my career was going to slow down in my growth, in my professional growth, to
Oh
prevent me
God.
from taking off. And I laughed so hard. It didn't even touch me. All I was all I was wishing was to be at home with my child. So that's the beauty of us such a yogis. We're spontaneous. We shouldn't go for all these society pressures, and we should
Yeah,
see in our own family, in our own personal situation what is needed.
yeah,
exactly.
mm-hmm.
yeah,
And
And
same
Nira,
for
you
the
made it.
husband,
Sorry.
huh? I mean, same for the husband. I think one positive trait of our society is that more and more often also you have husband who take time off when the baby is born. Society is giving more leaves,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
and the husbands are more. I mean, I think this is true for all my friends across the board I have everywhere in the world. Our generation of fathers is way more involved than the
yeah,
previous one, right?
Mm.
And it's a
yeah,
positive, it's a positive trait, because actually it's fun to grow around to be around your kids. It's something that for men also is positive too, right? Something that you enjoy.
Yeah, and I think Nira, you highlighted on a good point that women should support women, and maybe we just don't do that enough. Generally, that's a super important point, I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and about pressures, especially in Saja Yoga, I know my friends, I know my sisters quite well, and I see them struggling with some expectations, because they were born and raised in Saja Yoga, always hearing this: "Are you putting your name down? Are you putting your name down? When are you gonna put your name down?" And stuff like that. When they're like 15, 16, up to 17 onwards,
Mm.
and can be really also frustrating. We are talking about this stuff also really lightly, really, also in a kind of joyful way, but there are also people that in the collective, and I've seen them really struggling with these type of things. And when this happens, also we've seen it many times with the realized souls, that when you try to impose them Sahaja Yoga, they leave Sahaja Yoga. When you try to impose to a yogini to put her name down, she's gonna find someone outside, you know. And this is not gonna be like good for the future of Sahaja Yoga if we put it like that, unless they bring those people inside Sahaja Yoga. And
Mm.
but that's also like really that something that they came up in the Q&A, also along with the dress code, because also the dress code takes a big part, also on a mental level to people, because they, I can see like a Eugenie seeing that like boys are wearing shorts. Now that was the incipit, the sparkle that made everything, that started everything. But if, if I were like also, I kind of agree with that, and it makes you wonder. It's like, okay, why can't they do that? And why can't we? And the answer is actually that no one actually can, because we have to cover our chakras, we have to protect ourselves on a physical level. But also it's true that there are like some sort of double standards, you know. And I don't know
So
if you have anything like to that.
Well, I would like to jump in here and probably, bring the attention to realizing what are our powers, whether you are a man or a woman. And as a lady, we have all these beautiful qualities that were just described. We can nurture and love, and we can provide peace, and we can do many things with all the powers that we have. But also, the power of sensuality is there. And that power comes from the Muladhara. And a woman can choose to use that power, because these days we are taught that if you are dressing up in a sexy way with a mini skirt, a short, whatever it is, you show off more skin, then you immediately get that attention on you. But then what type of attention you get? Like you said, Lele, it's like, are you protecting your chakras by having all these eyes on you? Probably not. And then again, I guess what's important here is to understand that there is a certain level of shyness, in a woman that is very beautiful to see. I remember that, when my daughter was born, my Indian in-laws came and they put a black spot on her face, because they explained that it's so beautiful, the child. Now let's put this black spot so that the attention of the people goes onto that, and not onto the beauty of the child. So you drive away the attention of the beauty, and then in that way you protect the innocence.
I think I also had a chat with my boys once. I don't remember what the issue was, but it was something about why do I need to do something, that society imposes on me. It was a bit on the similar types. And I remember listening to a speech of Shimaji, which was quite fitting to this, which was like, if you have gold, would you just throw it in the street like that, and like, in a way that everybody can just grab it. So, if your power is chastity, if your power, and men and women, again, it's not just mean yogis in general. If we do value that power, when you get to know a rule that can protect what you cherish, you would want to protect it. So I remember, even this happened to me. I told this story to Romy earlier on. It's like I went to the US, it was summer, I was in shorts. And actually also I was not born in Saj, I didn't go to Saj school, so there is certain protocols actually I don't know, because I was never told. And I sat down, and this Indian brother came next to me very sweetly, well, actually very firmly, but also sweetly. It's like he just looked at me. It's like, look, if Shimaji was here in person, would you he's like, would you show your legs to her? And it made sense. I don't know why I didn't really feel such a strong reaction. I was like, well, definitely I would be in a kurta. I would, be nicely dressed with oil and all that. So from that moment on, I maybe I did it twice in the rest of my life after 15 years, but it became a thing. I'm like, oh, it makes sense. I shouldn't do that. So I think it's more than focusing on the double standards or who's doing, who's not doing it, or maybe the person that told you was harsh. That's another possibility. That's why the reaction is there, right? But ultimately, it's for your good. If there is something that does exist, and it's a rule that makes sense, and again, the rule is if you go to the meditation and Shimaji is there, wouldn't you be the best that you can look? That's the rule, you know. And the same is for the sleeves. The same is maybe with boys with hairs going all over the place, you know, or having a shirt with holes or whatever now fashion comes through, right? The ultimate is that you are in the collective, you are in the presence of the gods. How would you like to look? That's the answer, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
especially on the night of the announcements. That you should put an extra effort, a little
No
bit
shorts.
extra, because
Well,
you're about to meet your future wife in front of Shimadaji. That's maybe a bit important.
But boys do that. Huh? I've seen a few rocking in
I,
jeans,
I've
maybe a
seen it.
quirt on top, but jeans under.
my husband was one of those Torin jeans on the stage. He he always justifies himself that he was helping the US bring all the marriage bags to the castle and all that. But I spent quite a bit of time decorating myself with my beautiful sari. And then I go on the stage and I see this guy in his Torin jeans.
Now, this story is funny because your husband is one of the most protocolish, and probably that's the only time
Exactly.
in his life that it's something like that.
It's true, it's true. He was begging that give me time, I need to go and change, but it didn't happen.
So I think we cover a lot of ground, a lot of question. Do you is there anything we forgot, or Lela, do you have any other?
No, but more or less, I think we talked about everything more or less. Is
Mhm.
there
Maybe
is there anything that you would like to add to the things that we said?
or
And I
question.
will do like a really magic transition into the topics. But did you feel like you've said and now what you wanted to say?
I I I only feel one thing maybe because um, what pained me when I see a lot of these questions is not that people had these confusions or had these questions in the first place, but that people associated, um, the rules or the impositions on Sahaj Yoga. And
Mm,
so I I feel that, I mean, you can cut this out, of course, as well, but I just feel, if you feel that it's a message that's worth sharing, that ultimately we need to take our guidance from Shimataji directly. And if you're faced in front of you with somebody that you feel is not quite right, or that you feel is not kind, or that you feel is not respectful, then of course, on one hand, it's important to introspect and see, are you reacting with your ego? Are you also judging the person? Or are you reacting with your fear? But also then to understand that there's no force on anyone to do anything that they feel is wrong. And, if you are confused, then go back to the source or speak to somebody who you know is wise, or who you
right.
know is, but don't feel that you have to please everybody in society, or that you have to, follow a certain stereotype that you feel is imposed on you. Because if you look at the way Shimataji led her life, even, the marriages she you know, constructed or created, the lives, the way she's, if you hear the stories of the yogis, how they came together, often we hear about marriages that don't work, but the vast majority of them do. And so rather than hear, you can choose who you want to listen to, and seek advice from somebody who themselves seems happy, or who themselves seems in a good place, rather than you know uh, sort of converge on people who are criticizing, or people who have problems only and are blaming others for their problems. So I think somewhere we need to be honest with ourselves, that okay, is this a confusion because I am warring within myself about something I want to do, but I know is not quite right? And if if that's an internal struggle, then sure, speak about it with somebody that you look up to, somebody who you feel you can trust. But this sort of it's almost like an escape route that, you know, it's
Yeah.
because I was expected that I said yes to this person. No, this is your life. Nobody is going to live your life for you, you know. This is your life. So you need to own up to your decisions. And like Romina was saying earlier, that, you know, you can choose how you want to use your femininity. You can choose it to be seductive, or you can choose to protect yourself. You know, these are choices that you have to make for yourself in life, and then own up to them and face them. And even if you make a mistake along the way, there's no harm in learning from that mistake and moving forward and leaving it in the past, you know. And in fact, that's what we are all doing. We all make mistakes. We all learn from our mistakes, or hopefully. And I feel that it's important not to put the blame of our mistakes on anyone else, but also to be honest about, you know, okay, what is bothering me in this situation, you know, and keep going back to the source, which is Shimataji herself.
That's very well said.
Absolutely.
And with this, I think we can close this episode. I think we can name it The Wheels of the Chariot.
The wheels of
And this is going to be the name of the episode. I just made it up. So thank you very much, Romina. Thank you very much, Pragya. Thank you very much, Niranjana. Fabri, I don't know.
Thank you for listening.
You're welcome. Well, all right. This was Such Times. That's it for today. Thank you guys for joining. If someone
Thank you so much.
yeah, and remember that if someone asks you to cook, at least make them do the dishes. At least
Yeah.
this is what we can grasp about this
Very good
episode.
point. Thank you,
The
Thank you,
two
Lakshmi.
everyone,
wheels
Thank
for
of the
coming.
you.
We
chariot.
Thank
really
you.
Thank
enjoyed
you.
your
Very
presence.
Bye.
nice to see you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Take care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.